So, if you didn't watch part 1, I bought an old car in Copenhagen in order to drive it to China with a couple of friends. First we drove south to Serbia, where we took a detour to Croatia to visit a national park. Right before arriving, our car broke down on the Bosnian side of the border, and we naively just gave it to a couple of boys without getting their phone number or anything. Luckily, this guy let us sleep in his backyard where we set up our tents, and now you're more or less up to date on the story. Again, I didn't want to take any sponsorships when making this video, so if you want to support the channel, you can check out spaghettiroad.com for a t-shirt or just subscribe or like, it all helps out, but no pressure. After setting up our tents in the Bosnian man's backyard, a couple of his friends and his neighbor dropped by and things turned into sort of a small garden party, with fun and games. Later the neighbor showed us around their town and we walked around the river on a little path and crossed it using some logs. We ate lunch with him on a small boat sailing up the river, which was breathtaking, while we just spent the afternoon talking about how life was in Bosnia, football and everything else. The next morning I woke up early and decided to go for a nature walk. Which was nice until I realized I probably shouldn't walk there when I noticed this sign. Unfortunately, Bosnia is still dealing with the problem of leftover mines spread around some areas. I did my best to step back exactly into my own footsteps until I got back on the path. Since we were just waiting, or well hoping to get our car back, the time there was pretty relaxed. A bit later, a Slovenian couple drove by in a van, who we ended up talking to randomly. They were going to kayak down the river, which sounded like fun, so we jumped into the back of their van and spent the day kayaking on the river. In the end we all ended up in the water, but it was a lot of fun. Life was treating us pretty well in the Bosnian countryside, but we wanted to get going. The guys who had our car had still not showed up within the agreed time, and we started discussing the possibility that we had actually lost the car and considered how our travel should go on without it. Luckily, when all seemed lost, they suddenly showed up, and we were over the moon with joy. I still don't have their names, so this will be the worst advertisement in the world, but I'd like to shout them out and recommend them. So if your car ever breaks down, bring it to around somewhere here and hope for these guys. They do a great job. Unfortunately, even if we were just about 10 kilometers away, we didn't have time to go to the Croatian National Park, since we had to be in Romania on a specific day. Sorry Morten, I know it was your only wish. We got back on the road with a completely new clutch and it felt great. We drove for less than 5 minutes after getting the car back before it suddenly started to smell burnt and smoke started emerging. We found the parts which were burning and immediately cut them out. I don't really know what they did and to this day I still don't, but luckily the car was still able to drive without it. If you know the purpose of these things, please let me know. We continued driving all day until nighttime when we reached Sarajevo, the capital of Bosnia. The next day we went out to explore the place. It's a really cool city. You might have heard the fact that World War I began on a special bridge in Sarajevo when Archduke Franz Ferdinand of Austria was assassinated. At the time we didn't know this and went to take some photos on a completely random bridge. And by coincidence, you know the famous historical bridge? Yeah, that was not it, but it was in the background. Next we continued with a scenic drive towards the Adriatic Sea. Somehow when the coastline was distributed between Croatia and Bosnia, they ended up with this arrangement, which gives Bosnia just a few miles of access to the sea. For the second time we crossed the border into Croatia. Not so fun fact, Croatia is the 124th biggest country in the world. After entering the country we continued along the sea. Even though it was raining, it was truly beautiful. We drove towards Dubrovnik where we had a lunch. For some reason both these guys remain single to this day, so if you're looking for companionship I have nothing but praise for them. We only made this one picture in Dubrovnik for some reason, but luckily more exist online. The place is called the Pearl of the Adriatic and it's a medieval city dating back to the 13th century. Continuing along the scenic coastline we reached Montenegro, which only became independent again in 2006, with the second tallest population in the world according to this list and Europe's biggest canyon. We parked once we crossed the border and the very first thing we did was having a quick bathroom break in a nice spot. The drive there was amazing, with the ocean on the left hand side and the impressive mountains on the other side. I think this is one of my favorite roads of all time. In Montenegro you can go to the beach and enjoy it all to yourself. Maybe somebody can clear up a small discussion we had? Is it weird to shave on the beach? I didn't think so. Anyway, we headed for Podgorica, where you can see this very golden church. The rest of the city is... I would love to say something nice and not use the word boring about it, but well, if you ever visit Montenegro, which you absolutely should since it's a truly beautiful country overall, I would personally recommend the coast instead. Next up was Albania. Another incredible country with friendly people, where we drove directly to their capital, Tirana. Which in one way truly amazes me as the city of the future. The entire stoplights lights up. If you ever find yourself in Tirana, see if you can find this dog. He can open water bottles with his mouth. We also participated in some TED thing, not sure what it was about. In Albania, back when it was still cool for countries to be communist, they had a bit of a dictator who decided to put this huge spaceship looking pyramid in their capital and fill the rest of the country with bunkers. So they're pretty much everywhere now. Anyway, we decided we had to see Albania by night. First we found a hotel where we studied the hottest music videos Albania had to offer in preparation for a night out. Last thing we needed before heading out was getting that fresh Albanian haircut. And we were ready. I decided to try my skills as an Albanian DJ. Unfortunately, the real DJ soon returned from the bathroom, so I quickly lost my job again. Overall, it was a lot of fun, and the nightlife there is, well, incredible. Even if the origins of the pyramid is sad, Tirana can be viewed from the top at night before going home, which looks absolutely amazing. After Tirana we drove north through the mountains and headed for Kosovo. I'm not here to say what it is or isn't, I'm simply here to show our time in Pristina, and I have no desire to offend anybody. The city was incredible, we got some more popcorn, and there was this sort of race. We went out to get some local food in the evening. The physics competition in Romania was coming up soon, so we had to get back on the road. We planned on going to Sofia before Bucharest. The problem was we had entered Kosovo, which Serbia considers an integral part of itself, from Albania. So we had no Serbian entrance stamp in our passports, which could cause problems if we continued through Serbia. So we had to take an extensive detour through Macedonia, as it was still called at the time. To be honest, we didn't meet a lot of people there. The only interaction we had was letting this guy cross the street, but I guess he seemed like a top-notch guy. In the car we had plenty of time to read, write and just catch up on podcasts, and some bathroom breaks in the most beautiful environments. On the border with Bulgaria, the border guards were not fluent in English, and he kept asking something about how much with a fake accent. I didn't really understand him, but it always feels awkward to keep asking people to repeat themselves, so I made a quick guess and assumed he asked something about how much did our car weigh. Later I learned he asked if we were carrying any illegal drugs. So my response of "let me just check my papers" and confidently pointing at the registration of the car and said about a ton, did result in them checking the car thoroughly from every angle with some more border guards. I don't think he really believed we carried about a ton of anything, but he probably thought I was being an idiot and making fun of him. Which I promise I truly wasn't, it was just due to a language barrier. Unfortunately they broke the car's sound system when they took it apart. Anyway, we made it to Sofia. As it was still early on the trip, we couldn't read the Cyrillic alphabet yet, so we found it unbelievably funny that X-Men was called X-Me, and therefore decided to watch it. I must admit, the combination of the movie being dubbed in Bulgarian and having watched none of the prior X-Men movies, it didn't make much sense to me. The next day we walked around the city. There's quite a bit to see. They have the biggest cathedral in the Balkans, this indoors marketplace with vegetables. Oh, and their public transport is optimized for introverts with a row of single seats. I'm not sure what the car did, but when we came back to it, somebody had locked it up. Luckily, the parking fines are not only cheap, the system for paying them are also surprisingly efficient and fast. So these two gentlemen helped us and we were on our way. After driving some, we continued across the border to Romania, and apart from a quick Romanian lunch, we headed straight for Bucharest. We actually arrived early with an entire day to spare, so we headed up north to see Morten's new dream site. Much better than the Croatian park. Dracula's castle, in the forest of Transylvania. If you ever decide to go, the most important thing is, of course, that you bring a lot of garlic, since Dracula doesn't like it at all.
Nej, det kan Dracula ikke. Det kan Dracula slet ikke.
Another impressive feature around the castle is that even the wooden wagons have license plates on. When we got back to Bucharest, we drove around and saw some of the stunning architecture. We were told that the Palace of Parliament was big, but it was even bigger than imagined. In the evening we went out to dinner with my Romanian friend Alex, and we had a chance to experience that Bucharest nightlife and see a different side of the city. Over the next few days the physics competition took place, about 15 countries competed. I won't bore anyone with the details, but you solve physics problems as a team. After the competition, some celebration took place with the other contestants.
Heyo!
Heyo!
Skål!
Which ended up with Thai partying a bit too hard. The next day we said goodbye and planned out the next section of the route before we continued our journey. Before leaving Romania, I found this dog.
Hej med dig.
We arrived at the border with Turkey. Unfortunately, the tailgate of our car had broken, which always caused a bit of suspicion from border guards when they told us to open it, and we said we couldn't. Our plan was to pursue more of the visas we needed in Ankara, but we drove past Istanbul. It would be crazy not to stop there first. At our hotel, this little girl happily kept showing all her toys, so naturally I took a laundry basket over my head and pretended to be a monster. After spending almost 24/7 together for the past weeks, we decided to split up for the day and each walk around Istanbul alone. Both Ty and I had visited the city a few times before, but it was Morten's first time, so his top priority was to see the Blue Mosque. Istanbul is one of the most incredible cities. While roaming the streets, I thought, why not go to the Blue Mosque again? It's still huge and impressive. When we were supposed to meet up, I met Ty there, but there was still no Morten. Ty said he also visited the Blue Mosque. We headed back into the city to find Morten, and unfortunately he had gotten lost all day and was the only one of us who didn't get to see the Blue Mosque. I'm sorry, Morten, but it's not the worst city to go back to someday. To get the visas, we had to head to Ankara, which as the capital hosted all the embassies. We had our last Turkmen visa application from Berlin rejected, so that was our top priority. Our chances seemed slim, since all other travelers we met had their Turkmen visa applications rejected again and again. Anyway, we kept trying at the embassies. While in Ankara, we took a break from the boring visa applications and visited Ataturk's mausoleum, which is quite majestic. In Turkey, the soldiers were slightly more competent and skilled in marching than Ty and Morten, though they did give it a try. We drove up north to the Black Sea and continued towards the city of Samsun. Unfortunately, Morten had begun feeling sick some days earlier, and after a hospital checkup in Samsun, he was still not feeling well, though it was not something contagious. While he was resting, Ty and I went up to the top of Samsun Art Center and sat and watched over the city while the calls to prayer went off at night, which was a beautiful experience. To give him some space, we ended up sitting there the entire night. When we got back, Morten had decided to cut his travels short and would fly back from Tbilisi, which was really sad news, but very understandable when he was ill. Let's cut the second part here. The next part with Georgia, Azerbaijan, Armenia and Iran will be out as soon as possible. I got a few questions after the first part, such as why did we choose this car? Well, we couldn't really be picky with the budget we had, and even though it was the cheapest option, it was perfect and actually ended up being quite reliable. If you want to support the channel, one of the best ways is by grabbing one of these cool t-shirts at spaghettiroad.com. Subscribing also helps out the channel. Some random car guy asked, why didn't you tell me you were coming to Hungary? Sorry, I'll let you know next time. Did we shower? Well, certainly. We didn't sleep in tents every night, and showering was not a problem. If you have other questions, leave them in a comment and I'll try to answer them in the next video. Thank you very much for watching. I promise the next part will be out as soon as possible.